Now that we're reasonably familiar with core data and we know how to store and search data permanently within our apps, we're going to continue to work towards the skills that we need to build our blog reader app at the end of this section. And the first of those that we're going to look at is downloading and saving images from the web. So this is a really central skill if you want to build any kind of app which involves images that are shared between users or updated regularly. We'll see how to download images from the web, display them in your app, and store them in your app, so if the user opens up the app again, it won't need to download the image a second time. So let's start a new app called Downloading Images from the Web, and we won't be using core data here, so I'm just going to deselect that and then save it in the usual place. So just before we start writing some code, let's get an image to work with. And because we've used him before, let's stick with good old Johann Sebastian Bach. And we're going to take this image and download it from the web. So this time, instead of saving the image as, I'm going to copy the image address. And that will give me the URL that links to that particular image, which is what I need to download it. So we'll start just as we did when we downloaded some web content 2 sections ago. We'll define our URL. We're going to create a URL from a string, and that string is going to be what I just copied. And I'm going to force unwrap that because I can. It's a fixed URL, so I know it's going to convert correctly to a URL. Next, we create our request, which is an NS mutable request based on our URL. Then we create our task. Oops, sorry, that should be NS mutable URL request. There we go. Then we create our task, which is a URL session, which you'll remember is a bit like opening a browser window to go online and download some data, in this case an image. And we want a data task with a request. So we're going to take our request, and remember we need to cast it to a URL request. And we're expecting that this task will return 3 variables: data, response, and error. And we'll be using them in this code here. And before I write my code, I'm going to write the bit that I always forget, which is task resume, which you'll remember actually runs this task. Okay, so far so familiar. Let's just check for an error message. So if error is not nil, then we'll just print it to the logs. If it is nil, we'll carry on, and we'll check for the existence of data, although more specifically, we're going to attempt to convert data to an image. So we'll create a variable called backImage, which is going to be a UI image created from data, and the data that we're going to create it from is data. And that data there is an optional, so just to avoid a force unwrap, we'll proceed this with an if let data equals data, and that will unwrap data for us as long as it has a value. It's essentially the same thing as looking to see if data is not nil and then force unwrapping. just like we did with error here. Okay, so if we've got this far, then we've got our image, so we can display it on the app. So let's create a quick image view to display our image. So we'll have a nice big image view and we'll make it aspect fit so that back is well proportioned. And then I'll control drag from the image view and we'll save an outlet called back image view. And then all we need to do is set the back image view, set the image to be equal to the back image that we've downloaded and created from the data that we downloaded. And we need self there because we're inside a closure and we want to refer to that variable in the view controller itself. Okay, so this is pretty similar to what we've done before. We're creating a URL, then a request, then a task, which fetches the data, and if all goes well, we're going to convert that data to an image and update our image view with that image to display it to the user. So keep your fingers crossed. Let's have a look, see if it works. And there we go. We have our image. So that part's worked fine. The next challenge is to save the image locally on the device so that the next time the app is loaded, the image is restored, not from the web, but from the device itself. And we do that by first getting the documents path. Now this is where we're able to save user documents if we want to. And we get it from the slightly lengthy, but at least self-explanatory, NS search path for directories in domains. So we're searching for local directories here, directories on within the app itself. And we want to search for the document directory. The domain mask is where we're looking for our files, where we're searching for, and we want to search relative to the user's home directory. So we're going to use .user domain mask. We use different domain masks if we want to search in different places, but almost always, if you're doing something like this, you'll want to use user domain mask. And expand tilde is worth taking a moment to understand. The tilde is this symbol here, which you'll find by pressing Shift and the key to the left of Z on your Mac keyboard. And this represents a link to your home directories on iOS and macOS devices. So expanding the tilde will change the link from having a tilde in it to having the full link. And that's what we want here. So we're going to say true to that. Okay, so that will search for the documents path. It should only return a single path, but it's worth checking to make sure that we have at least one. And if we do, I'm going to attempt to let the documents directory equal documents path 0 as string. So this document's path will be an array of search results which should only contain one result, which is the one that we want, this documents directory. and we'll make it documents directory. And then we're going to create a save path, which is exactly where we're going to save our image. And it's simply going to be the documents directory and then the file name. So I'll add a slash and then I'll call it back.jpg. And then we just save the image. So we're going to create a UI image JPEG representation of our image. And the image we're going to use is this back image that we created there. And compression quality is a number between 0 and 1. I want the best quality, so I'm going to use 1. And then we're going to take that image and write it to a URL. And the URL is going to be a URL from a file. So file URL with path. And finally, the path is save path. Okay, so that's the process. We do just need to surround this with a do, try, and catch, just in case it's unsuccessful. But that will then do exactly the same as what it did before, but it should also save the image as well. And it looks like now the documents path 0 will always be a string. So we can actually get rid of that and just have a let rather than an if let. Okay, so I'm going to run that in the background and let it save the image for us. Of course, the final part of the puzzle is restoring the image from when it's already been saved. So let's write the code to do that. Much of the code is very similar because we still need to get the documents path, etc., etc. So I'm going to copy the chunk of code that we need. And then I'm actually going to write it at the very beginning of the file. And then once we've confirmed that this has worked, we're going to run this and comment this code out and confirm that we still see our image, which means that we must be getting it from the local directory. Okay. So we're going to leave documents path the same. Documents directory is the same. And I'm just going to change the file name there to restore path. And then we want to create a UI image from a file. So we just set back image view dot image to be equal to UI image from contents of file, and the file is restore path. And actually we don't need the do, try, catch around this one. We can run it as is. So there we go. Let's just check. Yep, we've downloaded the image again. That doesn't prove that the image has been saved locally, but now it's time to do that. So we're going to comment out all of this code. So we're not running that task at all. And we should find, to our great amazement, that the app does exactly the same thing as it did before, which might not look that amazing, but it does mean that we've saved the image locally and restored it from our local storage. So keep your fingers crossed. Let's see it happen. And there we go. So the image has been loaded from local storage, not from the web. So that's all we need to cover from this side of things, but it is the basis of all local image storage, or indeed any local file storage. But step one is to download the image, find the document's path and save it. And then step 2 is to attempt to restore it if possible. Excellent. So we've achieved a great deal there, and we're closer to being able to build our blog reader app. The next thing that we're going to learn is possibly the most powerful thing that you'll learn on this course, and that's the ability to process JSON and get responses from APIs. And we'll find out exactly what that means and why it's so powerful in the next video.